Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Miller, your host. I'm so excited to highlight a family-owned business today. We talk to all different kinds of companies in the food space, and today we have Alex Gallup. She is North American sales for Dabon. Please welcome her to the show. Hey, Alex.
Pam, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be
Yeah.
here.
We're delighted to highlight the company and the family-owned company, and you're part of that. And I'm just so excited to do that. Can you tell us about what the company does for those of us who haven't heard of you?
Certainly. And to be honest, we are not a consumer-facing brand, so I would expect not many people to have heard of us. We're more B2B. But what we are a sustainable palm oil company. We produce the palm all in Colombia, South America, where we're headquartered. But what makes us really unique is that we are 100% family-owned and operated. Our first generation of the Davila family, they began farming bananas in 1914. So we're over 100 years old.
Wow.
Yes. And then eventually we expanded into other operations, and that is included sustainable palm, which is by far and away our largest agricultural product. But we also do coffee, cocoa, avocado, and then we have some various industrial operations that I'll get into. But while family owned might still be somewhat prevalent, family operated sometimes is not. So that's, I think, kind of a unique point for us. So the second generation, they occupy all of the CEO and VP positions in the company. And then now we have the third generation entering the company. So I, along with two of my brothers and some of my cousins, make up 7 people of the third generation that are now working in Devon. I've been working here for, I think almost 8 years now.
Wow.
So time has flown. And now I'm about to give birth to a 4th generation members in a matter of weeks.
Yes, and so the business is growing, and so is the family. So
is the family. Yes. That's
well.
exactly
Let's dive a little bit. Let's dive a little bit into that palm oil. You said that by far is your largest. I think, for our listening audience, I don't know that much about palm oil,
Sure.
how that works, and different categories. That I wonder if you could share a little bit of education with us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So for those that aren't familiar, palm, it's not widely used necessarily in our homes, let's say. So if you go to Africa where it's a native crop, they're going to be, frying and cooking with palm oil, but here we don't so much. Where it's mostly used are in commercial applications. So it's sold to food manufacturers, cosmetic manufacturers, and is really in so many of your day-to-day products. But there are different types of palm. There is palm that is poorly produced and not good for the environment. I'm sure many of the listeners are familiar with the killing of the orangutans. So that's often what's happening, like in Southeast Asia, where they're clear cutting rainforests, burning down the rainforests, and then replanting. So there are different levels of sustainability. And so the entity that establishes the sustainable practices is called RSPO. That's the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. So there are different tiers. So there is such a thing as non-RSPO certified. So that's just straight conventional. That's where you don't care about the orangutans. Let's put it that way. And for the record, there are no orangutans in Colombia, so I will be done hitting that point.
Okay.
But so there are different tiers, and I'll go in order of kind of lowest to highest.
Okay.
And what it really is looking into the transparency of the practices of the palm. So the first lowest tier is book and claim. So book and claim is where you are sourcing conventional palm, but you are going to purchase credits I think they're called green palm certificates from an RSPO certified grower. And then the next piece is mass balanced. MB is what it's often called in the market. So RSPO MB, that's when there is some sustainable palm being procured, but it's mixed with all conventional sources. So there's no way to trace it back. So really that book and claim and mass balance arena, that's more so, you're going to commit your sin, but then you pay your penance. And then we have the two higher tiers, which is where we operate. So there's segregated. And so what segregated is, also known as SG, segregated is when we have different sources of sustainable palm, and then they're being mixed together.
Okay.
But it's separated from conventional palm throughout the supply chain. And then the highest level is identity preserved. IP is what it's colloquially known as. And what that is, it's identifiable back to one singular source. So if you give me a lot number of the palm that I sell you, I can tell you exactly which farm that came from, because what we have is identity preserved. So that's how the different levels of transparency lie. And as I mentioned, the bulk of our operations are standardized at the identity preserved level.
Yeah, I had no idea that there were so many levels, and absolutely the RSPO is regulating that, keeping track of that. And then that highest level, that identity preserve, where you can track it back to where it came from. That's what consumers are most interested in right now. I mean, all that's going on in the supply chain is that they want to know where their products are coming from. And so all those ingredients and what's happening to them along the way, essentially the journey of their product. So I think that IP level, thanks for detailing that out for us, because I think it's really important to understand that there are different grades and levels of palm oil, and depending on, what you want to support, I guess, and what you expect from your products, then you can make some decisions. I mean, I think an informed
Exactly.
Yeah, we want to educate the consumer so they even know that this exists. But talk to us about how your company operates, because you've always been very forward thinking as far as these kind of identities go and certification and things like that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, going back to the identity preserve piece, I think number one, consumers are, as you mentioned, much more focused on transparency. So especially with millennial and Gen Z, and as a millennial on the older side, I can attest that, we all care about where our food comes from. So we've been operating at this identity preserve level much long before it was what was before the millennials had any buying power, let's put it that way.
You were cool before it was cool, in other words. Yeah.
And that's right. That's right. So we always try to it's not that we're trying to stay ahead of consumer trends, but we just try to do what's right, like not necessarily what's popular. So number one is, again, transparency. That's most important. Actually, we're ranked number one in the world for transparency by SPOT, which is a mechanism put on by the London Zoological Society. And that kind of ranks the transparency of different commodities around the world. But the way we can be so transparent and the way our company operates, this is because we are 100% vertically integrated. So we have control over the entire supply chain. We have our own farms. We own our own extraction mills. And the extraction mill is where you bring the fruit and the kernel, you separate them and crush those. And then that's where you get your crude oil.
Okay.
We own our own refineries. And that's where the crude oil goes sent to be refined. And then we own the next leg of the operation, which is going to be logistics. So we're majority shareholders in the port of Santa Marta, which is, again, where we're headquartered. We have our own liquid bulk terminals. We have our own fleet of natural gas powered trucks. And that's how we get the palm oil from, the extraction mill to the refinery to the port. And then we have our commercial offices distributed around the world in order to get our oil to the masses. And then actually another derivative we produce is soap and glycerin. And we have that production as well using our own sustainable palm.
Okay.
So that's how we're able to be so transparent. But again, it's not because we're doing it, for our gain, but we do it because it's the right way to do things. So some other examples of that is we were the first company worldwide to offer certified organic palm products in 1992. So 1992, organic was not cool yet.
No, yeah, certainly that's on the front end.
Right. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier when talking about RSPO, but we were actually one of the founding members in the early 2000s and to help make the standards.
Okay.
And our most recent accomplishment of kind of being ahead on the traceability and doing what's right trend, we were the first ROC. So ROC is regenerative organic certified.
Yeah.
And we were the first rock gold level palm producer in the world, and the first rock palm offered in South America, period.
Okay.
So the goal here, again, it's not necessarily because we think we can get more money because we can offer these premium products, but what we want to do is we want to show the industry that it can be done. Palm can be grown sustainably and produced sustainably. And we're an open book. So we certainly believe that rising tides raise all ships. So we are very open with our practices and how to help other people get where we've gone.
That's very exciting. And for our listeners and viewers on YouTube that subscribe to us, you will have already heard we just interviewed the Organic Alliance. So regenerative.
Oh, the regenerative organic alliance. So they're our certified. Yeah, they're our certifier.
Right, Elizabeth with that, and she explains about.
I know Elizabeth. Yes,
and
they're wonderful.
The gold level is that top level of certification, which is, as she said, very hard to achieve. And the reason they have 3 levels and they start down there at the bronze level is to give companies an entry into the certification.
Exactly.
Without it being overwhelming, because if you just start with that gold level, which obviously is where you are, it can be where companies would be discouraged. But if you give them something to shoot for, that is still difficult and a stretch, but achievable, then they can
exactly
up the certification.
And I feel that the way they have structured that is wonderful because, we're all trying to make the world a better place. But you don't have to do it all at once. No one's out there solving world hunger right now in one fell swoop. We all have to just take incremental steps and do the best we can. And we're lucky enough that because we're 100% vertically integrated, we don't have to wait for someone else's buy-in that it's worth it to become gold level certified. We just do it. But that's a big hurdle for a lot of people. And it's a big hurdle for a lot of smaller companies, smallholders, small farmers. I can't say enough wonderful things about the program and what they've done.
Well, great. So people would have already heard that, like I said, subscribers. And if you don't subscribe, you can go back a couple episodes and listen to that, or within the last 5 episodes or so. Another area where you're really leading the charge is in innovation, because what you're doing, and you can explain about kind of your circular economy within your own harvesting and production area with the palm oil. If you could take us through that a little bit.
Certainly. So innovation is key, especially on the environmental front. As you mentioned, we do have a circular economy where absolutely nothing goes to waste. We have an outlet for everything. In fact, we're the largest composting facility in all of Colombia. And then that compost goes to our farms as well as some of the smaller surrounding community farms. And so that's a big resource that we have. But we use every scrap. So we produce biodiesel from less than desirable oil. We manufacture pellets from palm fibers. that we would throw away. But what we do is we take those palm fibers and we produce pellets, and then those are used as energy in place of coal. But I think our most notable, and I would say the sexiest thing that we have on the environmental front in terms of innovation is our methane recapture program.
Wow.
So what that is basically we wash the palm fruit bunches and we take that effluence and run that effluence into a big pool. And there's this huge, it's not going to sound that sexy, but I promise it's cool. So it's like, it's covered with a huge tarp. And what that does is it traps the gas, and that output of gas is methane. We then use that methane, we turn it into energy, and we use that energy to fully power our extraction mills, as well as have enough to put power back onto the national grid.
Wow.
So actually our production process is carbon negative.
Okay, and that's really self-contained. Wow, that is definitely the circular, where you're really using everything. Like you said, nothing goes to waste, and you're even
That's right.
to energy back to the grid.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty. I told you it's sexy.
I know. Well, and
carbon all.
along the lines of doing things because it's the right thing to do. I mean, you're also very involved as far as social impact and with some of your farmers and workers and other programs like that. If you'd like to share a little bit about what you're doing, because I think it's a good model for other companies to have, to see what some companies are doing and what can be done for them to be able to visualize.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's important to remember, yes, we're all producing a widget, let's say, but what are you without your people? So I think the most important and fundamental thing to Devon is invest in its people and the surrounding communities. So we have a ton of social programs, but I'll just touch on a couple.
Okay.
And one of our longest standing and most robust programs is our smallholder program. And I'm sure you and a lot of your listeners may be familiar with such a thing. It's essentially like, a lot of domestic industries might call it like more like a co-op. But our smallholder program, it's made up of the families of surrounding communities to our farms, and they're independent farmers. But they have to comply with Devon standards, and then Devon buys their palm. But what's I think special and unique about our program is that we cover the costs in order to bring them up to certifications and our standards. So that would include the organic certification, that would include fair trade, that would include RSPO, that would include ROC. And what that does for these families is that, number one, it diversifies their crops. So they might be, growing pineapple and mango, and then, palm is a fairly easy crop to grow. So let's throw that on there. And what it does is it gives these families access to an international market premium that they would not be able to get otherwise. So that's a really special one. And anytime we have clients visit us, we always take them to different smallholder farms, and it's really beautiful to see the impact that these programs have had on families. Actually, it makes me think of one in particular. His name's Jaime. And we always visit him on our visits, and he has 3 daughters. And one daughter, I think, is a dentist, one's an engineer, and one's a lawyer. And he was able to give that to his daughters through his farming.
Okay.
That's incredible. Yeah. Anyway, so that's our smallholder program. Another big focus that we at Devon have is diversification of family income for our community members. The major vision was to support female empowerment. And we did a lot of studies working with local universities and figured out the biggest way to empower females is through diversifying their family income and being able to bring something to the table. It gives them power and equality within their home. So different ways we've done that with that vision in mind is we actually established a program for the wives of farmers and factory workers where there's like a little, I would say factory, but it's basically a building with sewing machines, and they make all of the uniforms for Devon.
Okay.
And there's a joke that now, once the wives started making the uniforms, all of a sudden there were no complaints about the uniforms anymore.
Yeah. And that's really keeping it all in the family for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's one example of the diversification of family income. But we also want to promote productive inclusion in the local economy. So the way we do that is we put on workshops, typically geared towards women, to teach them marketable skills. And so some examples of those would be like artisanal soap making, hand making bags, baking lessons, things like that, that then they can go off and, start their own business, kind of sell it in their own community. And then if they do want to launch a business, we offer them no interest loans to be able to do so, and then be able to help them diversify their family income and give them that power.
Yeah, really great programs, and just innovative ideas too, like having them make the uniforms for the workers that are there, and the female empowerment to bring not only additional income to the family, but also some outlet for the women and the mothers who might be raising a family, and they can also bring in some income and garner some marketable skills that can actually be used in their community. So that's really exciting. Well,
Absolutely.
you have so much happening at your company. Thank you for sharing, like, just the insights into how obviously well entrenched you are at the sourcing of your product, and that you're in control of that, and so can benefit the consumers who buy the products that your ingredients go into because of that commitment on your part. So as a consumer, appreciate that. And then not only that, but the commitment to innovation and doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I think that's really commendable. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we go today, Alex?
I think I just want to reiterate a couple points. Number one, again, we as a company are an open book. You can visit our website at www.dabonusa.com. That's our US focused website, but then we also have our global website at dabon.com. So that's D as in dog, AA, B as in boy, O, N as in Nancy. But what I want to reiterate is that we are an open book and we share lots of resources. We share a lot of our practices that we really want to see a lot of these replicated by other industry players, either on a large scale or a big scale. So please always reach out with questions, and we're happy to help. And the second point I want to leave listeners with, especially the consumers, is that yes, while we are doing the good practices, we have to generate the demand for it. And there are a lot of younger, smaller companies, and now bigger companies as well, starting to wake up and realizing the importance of sourcing sustainable products. But, if it's important to you as a consumer to be able to feed your family product that has been made sustainably, you have to put the pressure on these big guys. And if as a consumer, we're not making those demands, they're not going to push the needle, and change their numbers. So I just encourage consumers to really reach out and push those big guys to wake up a little bit and try to source a little bit better.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that with us, Alex. We will have all the links to your company in the show notes. And to our subscribers and listeners, please let us know what you thought about this interview and leave us some comments. We answer everyone. Until next episode, I'm Pam Line-Miller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.